What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and today we're checking out the Spyderco Spy-DK, which is based off of Spyderco's UK penknife platform, but made to comply with Danish knife laws. And I'm not super familiar with Danish knife laws. I didn't try and research it ahead of time just because someone watching this from Denmark is going to be much more familiar with their own laws than someone who Googled it for the sake of a video. So I don't want to try and present myself as an expert on Danish knife laws, but if I had to guess, they are pretty similar to UK's with stricter blade length restrictions. And the reason I'm guessing that is it is a slip joint, so it's non-locking, technically two-handed opening, although in spirit, I guess, I technically can open this with one hand, but it's a lot slower than opening it with two hands and pretty difficult. It requires a decent bit of finger strength and dexterity. And then the blade length on here is 2.69 inches, so just under 2.7 inches. And that's where I guess the DK or Danish knife laws differ from the UK knife laws. This is 68 millimeters, so they probably have a 70 millimeter restriction or maybe even a 60 millimeter cutting edge because this cutting edge is 58 millimeters. Otherwise, this is going to be identical to your UK penknife. And you may have noticed while I was fumbling around with this, that notch above the Spidey hole on the back, that's not a chip in the blade or cosmetic imperfection. That's to indicate that this was a factory second. I got this from their most recent red and black factory second sale. And so cosmetically it looks perfect. If I had to guess, the defect was in the action of this knife. I don't think they're meant to lock up this much in the fully open position. There's no lock, but this is really locked into place. In fact, I can beat on the back of this blade and you'll see that it's not budging whatsoever. I'm hitting that reasonably hard. And so in order to close this, you do have to be fairly intentional to break past that initial point. Once you do, it's perfectly smooth. Now it's not super snappy into the half stop position, but from half to closed, really snappy. And fully opening it is completely smooth, and it does jump into the half and that fully open position. And so I would imagine that's more what you can expect from first quality runs of these. I think mine was just because it's a second, it doesn't have perfect action, which is understandable. And so don't want to kind of present it as that's the norm on this one. Now, I already mentioned that blade length of 2.69 inches, 3.6 inches on the handles here, bringing the overall length to only 6.29 inches. So pretty small knife, but really happy with the ergos on this one. Even with that 3.6 inch handle, I'm able to get all four fingers wrapped around this handle comfortably, lock in with no hot spots whatsoever. And this is very comfortable to use and to hold. And it's not even that tight. There's a small gap in between my fingers and I'm still not at risk of falling off of the back here. And the reason for that is this finger choil, and I really like when knives do finger choils in this style where half of it's made up of the blade tang, half in the handle, because it's a really good use of space. But also on slip joints, it's really an effective way to add a secondary security measure to make sure that those don't close on your fingers. So mine's so tight that I'm not worried about that anyway. But if it weren't so tight and this were to close on you, you'll see that it kind of pinches into your finger with that finger choil. No part of the blade is coming close to your hand. So even if that does fail and close up on you, you don't have to worry about this cutting with you, which you would have to worry about with a normal slip joint. And so I really like that style of finger choil, especially on slip joints. Now, weight-wise, we're looking at 1.9 ounces, extremely lightweight, obviously being FRN. And aesthetically, I think I already mentioned, not a fan of FRN, but perfectly fine as usability, and it's actually really grippy. Never had any issues with the durability. Does have a pocket clip, which isn't typical with slip joints, but it seems like with Spyderco slip joints that's a lot more common. So we do have a deep carry wire pocket clip, which another thing that's not my favorite aesthetically, but functions perfectly fine. And you'll see that it kind of lands on the Spyderco logo on either side. And the rest of these handles are textured and super grippy, but that Spyderco logo is smooth, and so it's not going to tear up your pockets even if you're clipping repeatedly into the same pockets. Also wanted to point out that jimping on the finger choil and the ramp of that blade. And it's not the most grippy jimping. I feel like anytime you get the super fine jimping, I don't find that to be super grippy, but it is somewhat grippy. And because of the shape of the blade, I'm not really worried about sliding up on that blade anyway. Now, otherwise, that blade is Bohler N690 and full flat grind really slicey, like almost all Spydercos come, and so really nicely done edge. I've been using this one a lot for random like food prep and stuff like that. It really works great in that capacity. Now I mentioned that this technically can be open one-handed, and it's pretty difficult to do, to be honest, so I don't think you'd get in any trouble for this being a one-handed opening knife, even if you live somewhere where it does have that restriction. But you have to really break past about right here, and then once you do, it's pretty easy to open, but that required a lot of pressure, a lot of concentration to get it to that point. Breaking past that first inch or so, it really just wants to be closed, and the spring has enough resistance that I don't think anyone would say this is a one-handed opening knife, even though technically it can. Most of the time my finger ends up slipping off of here and then it snaps back shut about here or so. You'll see it snaps back shut, and so if you don't break past that, it is definitely a two-handed opening knife. But overall pretty cool, and I think a really wonderful value. I think it's unfortunate that it's been discontinued, but I know they've done other knives that were specifically made to comply with Danish knife laws, so hopefully there's still at least one in production. But even if you're not in Denmark, if you see this available at a retailer, it's priced so well and such a fun little knife that I would definitely consider picking another one of these up if I saw them. I know they make some other colors as well. I've seen at least an orange one, which I definitely prefer over just the plain black. I have so many black handle knives that I just like color, but pretty cool knife. Would love to hear your thoughts on it down in the comments below if you have one, what your action is like, because like I said, I imagine that this actually usually has very good action. Now this is a modern construction, so it is screw construction. The spring on the back does protrude a little bit, but I don't know if they're really trying to get completely flush with there. There's obviously a gap between the FRN and that spring, but again, being a modern construction, I don't think those are things that Spyderco is really trying to hit in terms of fit and finish like a normal traditional slip joint might be. So don't really fault it for that. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting that notification button, or joining the channel as a member. I'm trying to beef up the library of member exclusive content. I think we're up to 5 videos so far and definitely have a few more planned. So check that out if you want to find other ways to support the channel. But thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.